Honestly, the goal-setting part of improvement projects is one of the most important and most challenging. It's very rewarding to do improvement, and people are always so excited to start coming up with ideas for how to solve problems. But without identifying a proper goal, you'll be unable to tell if the interventions have improved your process. To illustrate this properly, I'd like to take you in the Wayback Machine to November 19th, 2004. On that chilly winter day in history, one man stares into the face of our nation's history and declares, "I'm going to steal the Declaration of Independence." I'm talking, of course, about the movie National Treasure. Potentially one of the most ridiculous and sadly thought through heist movies of all time. This movie stars the iconic Nicolas Cage as Benjamin Franklin Gates, whose family has a legacy of treasure hunting. Ben Gates is an intelligent man, so he defines his goal of stealing the Declaration of Independence. Let's take a look at how to transform Ben's goal into a SMART goal. A SMART goal first must be specific. In this case, stealing the Declaration of Independence is pretty dang specific. Ben didn't set out to steal something or steal a document of historical significance. He called out exactly what document he wanted to steal. When making your own goals specific, always be sure to name the particular process you're trying to improve. Second, your goal needs to be measurable. Here we find our first issue with Ben's goal. How do we measure stealing the Declaration of Independence? For those of you who have not seen this classic movie, Ben is dealing with a clock. He must steal this Declaration of Independence before the bad guy, Ian Howe. This gives us a somewhat measurable outcome. Steal the Declaration of Independence before Ian Howe. One thing to note here before we continue is that in SMART goals, we like to see a baseline and target for improvement. For example, decrease our rank in cost of spinal implant products from 55.6 percentile to the 26.1 percentile is an example of a SMART goal that illustrates this well. We like to encourage teams to stick with strict numbers. When you say you're improving a metric by some percentage, you can't get a good understanding if this is a good goal. Is it challenging to improve that metric by 10%? How much volume are we talking about? In fact, many people find statistics to be misleading. Without all of the information, it's really hard to say what these numbers are telling you. And the most important thing we're trying to do is tell a story. Note that stealing the Declaration of Independence before Ian Howe is a binary metric. Either Ben is successful or he isn't, and this action can only be completed one time. In healthcare, binary metrics show up occasionally as well. Was the medication we authorized formulary or not? Did the patient get readmitted or not? The difference is that for us, these binary metrics actually happen over and over and over again. So that's how we measure them. But in general, we prefer not to use metrics like this to better tell the story of improvement. Process metrics are used to evaluate the performance of a process, like cycle time, turnaround time, throughput, etc. Consider utilizing a process metric instead of a binary outcome one. An outcome metric is used to assess the extent to which specific outcomes have been achieved. Be sure to determine the cadence at which the process occurs prior to committing to that SMART goal. Don't choose a process that happens once in a blue moon with a binary outcome. Here is a table that should help clarify the parallels between this example and a medical one. Feel free to pause here and take time to understand the differences shown. The next thing you'll want to think about is keeping your goal achievable. Okay, well this one might be out the window for this particular heist example. Typically, this is referring to the gap you're trying to close, i.e. improving a metric by 25 or 50%. So keep in mind, we want to balance between achievable and challenging. But as the very clear, this is how we're going to steal this thing montage shows in the movie, Ben Gates has found a way to make this whole heist very feasible. Let's pick one or two of Ben Gates' brilliant montage examples to add to our SMART goal. Steal the Declaration of Independence before Ian Howe on the night of the National Archives Gala, while the document is being cleaned. Your goal should also be relevant. Much of this piece of the SMART goal will actually be made clear in the background, but the reason why this is an important part of the acronym is in choosing your SMART goal. When you decide on a SMART goal, make sure that the metric is clearly linked to the outcome you're looking for. In our example, we may want to add that stealing the Declaration of Independence is actually to keep it safe from Ian Howe, in addition to potentially leading to a several billion-dollar treasure in the background. And finally, your goal must be time-bound. Your goal needs to meet a time frame for completion. In our example, using the gala might not be clear enough of a time frame. Let's change the SMART goal one final time. Steal the Declaration of Independence before Ian Howe in the first 3 hours of the National Archives Gala while the document is being cleaned. Ultimately, your SMART goal does need to be a smart thing to do. Maybe stealing the Declaration of Independence isn't the most intelligent idea. Use your improvement tools for good, not evil. If we were to craft the best SMART goal ever, it would have the following Mad Lib style while keeping in mind the acronym we discussed. So increase or decrease a specific process measure from value A to value B by C date. For example, the team will decrease an annual number of readmissions cases from 107 to 85 by December 2020. Once you have your SMART goal, you will also need to consider a data collection plan. One way to think about what other metrics you might need is which family of metrics this SMART goal lives in and which other families might be helpful as balancing metrics. A family of metrics is a grouping of related metrics. We might choose to consider how we could measure Ben Gates' stealth. For example, if we do steal the Declaration of Independence but we get caught, that's kind of a waste. So maybe we choose to also measure how long Riley Poole, aka Ben Gates' partner in crime, has a hold on the National Archive camera feed. These metrics are also more examples of the process metrics I spoke of earlier. Let's bring back the table from before and show the parallel to balancing metrics here. Again, feel free to pause this video at this point to get a better understanding of the parallel we're drawing. In relation to a medical example, the team is improving enhanced recovery after surgery. Their SMART goal is centered around achieving compliance to a protocol they are hoping to put into place. But a secondary metric that they also need to keep in balance in this project is to reduce opioid use intraoperatively and in the postoperative period to reduce costs. Throughout your project, you will hopefully see improvement because of all the fantastic work you'll be doing. To show that improvement, you can utilize a tool called a run chart. Notice that the x-axis shows time passing at a regular interval. We like to suggest that the metric you've chosen for your SMART goal is shown on this chart at a minimum of a monthly cadence. The more frequent, the easier it is to show change. On the y-axis is where you'll plot your actual metric. Another guideline is that your run chart should have a baseline, target, and new average. We actually have a template that you can utilize for run charts like this one, but don't be afraid to ask your designated data person or improvement professional for help building one out. We have another video available on how to build a run chart if you have more questions.
You know, it's really important to have a SMART goal because you want to have something that's measurable. You want to have a time frame and an end to it. And you want everyone in your group to be on the same page with what you're trying to accomplish, right? So having that SMART goal is important. You get everyone's buy-in, you get everyone's agreement on what you're going to work on. There's an end date to it and some parameters on the SMART goal. When you don't have a team that doesn't have a common goal, it feels like you're herding cats, right? Like everyone is working on what they think the problem is, what they think the end result is. And so everyone's spending energy and time and not for the same common goal, not for the same common accomplishment. When you don't have a measure for your goal, then how are you trying to define what you're trying to accomplish? You have to have a problem. You have to be able to measure your problem, and you have to be able to measure how well you're doing in the end. Did I make an improvement with my SMART goal? Did I solve our problem or make improvement to the problem? You have to have a way to measure your success and to measure non-movement, right? Has your process improved or has it not improved?
So how can you be sure the goal you achieved is statistically significant? But the world of statistics can be very daunting with numbers like p-values, confidence intervals, and a bunch of other terms taunting you, so how do you know where to start? Please be sure to rely heavily on either your team's designated data team member or an improvement professional. Just to give you some insight on what to look for, most of our improvement projects can find use in statistical analysis in one of these 4 tests: a one proportion test, a one sample t-test, a chi-squared test, or an ANOVA test. More details can be found on these tests in other videos about analyzing and prioritizing root causes. Another statistical tool that may be helpful is measurement system analysis, or MSA. MSA is a method of determining the amount of variation that exists in the way the process is actually being measured. This is particularly important for teams who are getting data from multiple sources or if multiple people are gathering the data. The question that MSA answers is the variation in my data as expected, or is there an outside influence due to the way that I'm measuring my data causing some unexpected variation? Once you've completed your SMART goal and started your run chart, you'll take a deeper dive into identifying and analyzing your process problems. Let's review the objectives and what we've learned in this video. Writing an effective SMART goal to define and direct your improvement project. Defining and delineating between process measures and outcome measures. Identifying the basic functions and purposes of a run chart in preparation for creating one of your own. We also learned that there are several statistical tools we can use to further analyze our data. Statistical tests like t-tests or using measurement system analysis to verify that the variation of the data is as predicted. But we should reach out to our improvement professionals if we think we can utilize these techniques. Thank you for watching. Take your time writing a SMART goal to ensure you set your team up for success. And be sure to enjoy watching your improvements make a measurable difference in your process.